Hello, hello.
Hello.
Welcome. Hi, everyone. Hi, Aileen. Hi, Caroline. Sylvia.
Hi.
Amy Fontaine, my meeting from yesterday.
Hi.
Meryl. There's Robert Barry, a new practitioner. Great to see you all. We're going to start, even though there are many other people registered for this event, because we have a lot to get through. So, like to welcome you to our November HBDI Practitioner Forum. 3 key ways your HBDI preferences can make or break your performance and well-being with Claudine Chicheportiche. If you have never met me before, I am Linda Garsky, the National Sales Manager at Herman, and I'm based in our head office in Sydney. I've been with Herman for 5 years and I'd love to help and support any of you. So I'm only an email or phone call away. Please contact me if you need anything, and hopefully I'll be contacting you too. Now, if your full name isn't showing on your Zoom window, could you go to the 3 dots on the right-hand top corner and type it in? You may need to, or you may like to add your preference code too. In the chat, let us know where you're joining us from, because this time we have people from across the ditch in New Zealand and even Hong Kong and Singapore joining, I think.
Wow.
Now you'll notice, I think there's a reaction button on the bottom bar where you can put a, virtual hand up, a little cartoon hand up. So either using that or your actual hand. Who is a newly certified HBDI practitioner among us? We've got Robert Barry. Anyone else on the screen at the moment? I don't see anyone else, but I'm just having a look in the chat too. We've got someone from Orange, someone from Sydney, Melbourne. Anyone from across the ditch here? Galston, Sydney? Perth? That's a long way across, but no ditch. Okay, now if you have been an HBDI practitioner for more than 10 years, put your hand up. Got a few thumbs up, fantastic. All right, well, thank you all for setting this time aside. There'll be a session where, this will be a session where you'll need to have a pen and paper handy to reflect personally on some questions. And also just an FYI that the presentation will not be shared in our follow-up this time, so please take notes. We'll be recording the session, but for Claudine's personal use only. After I've introduced Claudine, we're going to go into small breakout groups to meet and greet each other, and Claudine will be giving you a topic to discuss and reflect upon with each other, so that will be fun. And then she'll be sharing her screen and presenting to us. Afterwards, Michael Morgan will be giving us his takeaways on the session, and I'll be talking about a couple of Herman events that are coming up for your diary. Now, Claudine Chicheportiche is a high performance coach who has an amazing backstory in sport and martial arts. As you will have read in the invitation, right now, she's a mindset coach for athletes preparing for the Tokyo Olympics and teaches emotional intelligence to organisations like the AFP. A certified Herman practitioner and a huge fan of HBDI, she's here to share her highly practical mindset tools and strategies with you. So welcome, Claudine, and everyone. Get set for an inspiring, empowering, and highly practical session.
Wow. That's what we're doing. Okay, great. That sounds fantastic. Thank you so much, Linda. Hi, everyone. That's really awesome to see you all. I'd love to be able to go through all of your images and see. I'm just trying to catch you all. That's so cool. Thank you so much. So welcome and hello. Can I just ask, I'm about to actually dive straight into sharing some slides, so I'll do that in a moment. But I just wanted to please ask, there was just a little bit of background noise when Linda was just talking there. And can I just ask if everyone can please be like hyper conscious of whether or not you're on mute or not on mute, because it really does affect the whole experience for all of us. So that'd be super great. Thank you so much. I'm going to do everything I can to live up to Linda's expectations and outline. So without further ado, I am going to open up my slide deck and begin. So I'm just going to start sharing here and I'm going to play. Now, can I please just doubly confirm that you can see myself and maybe a few other thumbnails depending on what you've got set up, but you can see my first slide. Is that correct? Can I just get a thumbs up? Thank you. Thanks, guys. Brilliant. Awesome. So I'd actually like to start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the country on which we each stand and where we all meet from today. I acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional owners of the country on which I stand. We recognise their continuing connection to land, waters and culture, and we pay our respects to their elders and to all elders, past, present and emerging, the traditional owners of the country from each of the lands we meet from today. Thank you. So let's dive in, HBDI and mindset. So we're going to be looking at what are the 3 keys, as Linda said, to how do we get our HBDI preferences? How on earth do they make or break your well-being, your performance? So here's our agenda for today, and I'm going to just, very simply, I'm just going to give you a quick about and to put things into context, like why do I even teach mindset? Why am I a facilitator in mindset? And then we're going to dive straight into your breakouts. And I'm going to be getting you all to please consider, how do you actually measure performance? And even if you have time for it, how do you measure well-being? When we come back from the breakout, we're going to be looking at the 3 levels of performance. So I'm going to guide you through in what those levels are. And then I'm going to relate those into the 3 keys. So how specifically, like what exactly is it about your preferences that are going to impact your performance and are going to impact your well-being? And at the end, if we've got time, I'll see if anyone's got 1 or 2 questions, I'll see if I can take those, and then I'll hand it back over to Michael and to Linda. So a quick little blurb about me. I've trained karate for well over 20 years. And as you can see, I've achieved my 4th degree black belt. I've also won a bunch of, oh, hey there, sorry, I've just noticed that someone's not on mute. I was just wondering, never mind. We're going to have to use our powers of focus in order to be able to channel that. And maybe Linda or Kate, who are the hosts, maybe if you can mute all, and that might help. Either way, I'm just going to dive in regardless. Thanks, guys. So I've won a bunch of karate titles, but outside of that, I've done a number of other things as well. I was on the core writing team for TEDx Sydney for several years, and I was actually lead internal and external communications for a number of bank mergers as well. So a lot of time when people say to me, hey, how do you teach high performance? Usually I'll just say that I've won some stuff around karate, but actually my background is much more than just training and competing. And actually I even lived in the jungle. I lived in very remote jungle for a while, and I ran leadership programs working to alleviate poverty across the Asia Pacific as well. And all of this matters because it feeds into what we're going to be covering today with regards to our preferences and the way in which we like to think. So as Linda mentioned, today I teach high performance mindset, and here are just a few of the organizations and groups that I facilitate and teach high performance mindset to, and also to emotional intelligence as well. So basically, I think it's clear to say that, as someone who's been studying mindset and high performance, for well over 20 years, I'm hand up in the air. I'm obsessed with mindset and the way in which we think and how that impacts the way we show up in life. So what's this got to do with HBDI? So essentially, why am I a huge fan? And I've got to say, I am a huge fan of whole brain thinking. And why is that so? Well, essentially, I use whole brain thinking and HBDI to create high performance thinking. It's definitely one of my tools in my toolkit. And high performance thinking actually facilitates high levels of performance. So the way in which we think, that is what drives how we perform, along with our emotional state as well. But our mindset actually drives our emotional state and our performance. And because our mindset is, interlinked with our emotional state, it actually impacts how we feel, and how we feel is actually our well-being. So I love HBDI and whole brain thinking and understanding it, and I use it to increase my performance. And I'm also a coach, so I work with other athletes, leaders, people, individuals, all who are looking to basically better themselves, their performance, or how they feel. And I want to show you today how we do that using HBDI. And I'm sure that everyone here, but what I'd like to do is maybe just share my methods. And if I'm doing something that you would like to use as well, great, fantastic. So I've got a quick question, and the question is, what actually is high performance to you? So we all have different thinking preferences, okay? And we know that we think about ourselves and the world uniquely. So my definition of high performance and the way I think about high performance, it's not necessarily going to be like any single person who's on this call. And I'd like for you to start considering, what do you think high performance is, or a high performance mindset is? And then let's get even clearer. Are you a high performer? And do you even want to be one? I think this is a really helpful starting point, rather than just assuming that everyone wants to be a high performer. And, what does that even mean anyway? In my experience, most of us feel, there's a lot of people who do not feel comfortable putting their hand up and saying, oh, I'm a high performer, or I'm an overachiever. People are more inclined to admit to being a perfectionist. So where do you sit in that scale? And I'd like for you to consider, and this is what I'd like you to take out into your breakouts, please. So how do you actually measure success? What does success look like to you? Now, some of you, particularly the yellows in the group, are going to say, well, hang on a second, or maybe even the greens are going to want some definition. Well, hang on, success in what capacity? Success in the workplace, success in my family life, success financially. These are on your terms. I'm not here to define the terms. So I'd like for you to decide, what does broadly success look like to you? It is layered, it is complex. So let's just keep it simple. And the purpose of going out into these breakouts is simply for you to get clear on what is your measurement and your view on what high performance is. And so we're going to go into the breakouts. Now, everyone's going to have about 11 minutes. So that's going to give you about 2.5 minutes each, because you're going to go into breakout groups of 4. So if I can just ask you to be really timely and respectful of how long you're each speaking. Maybe if someone wants to be a timekeeper, it's easy to talk over 2.5 minutes, and we want to make sure that everyone in the group is heard. Okay, great. Well, look, thanks everyone. I hope that you found that interesting, and that it was helpful for you to consider, how do you actually like to measure success? Because quite often we might just be acting on autopilot around, what success is. And hopefully that's got you ticking around, hang on a minute, what does success actually mean to me? And how do I feel about my definition of that? And so now what I'd like to do is lead into those 3 levels of performance that I was talking about, because I think that you would have just discovered that we all actually have really different views on what high performance is, or what success is. And these are typically driven actually by our thinking preferences. And so these 3 levels of performance that I want to share with you, I'm going to tie these in. These are just around performance in general. And then I'm going to show you how they link back to HBDI and whole brain thinking. So quite often, if I'm working with an athlete, or even if I'm trying to understand how good I am at something, or when I'm hiring someone, or if I just need to understand how competent is this leader, how competent is this client that I'm working with, where are they at? We can apply this methodology that I'm about to share with you, and you can apply it to yourself and to others. So take a look. So the first level of performance is actually, it's your ability to know if what you're doing is good or bad. Is it effective or is it ineffective? Okay, that's the first level. It's the noticing. The next level is your ability to know why it's good or bad. why it's effective or ineffective. And then the third level is knowing how to actually make something better. So how do you actually improve performance? So I want to dig a little bit deeper here because this is pretty important. So let's take a look at the first level. And I said that this is knowing, and this is around the level of awareness. So let's say I'm an athlete and I've got no idea of that I'm doing a certain behavior. Or let's say I'm a leader and I've got no awareness around how I'm actually talking to my staff or how I'm doing something. How can I possibly change my level of performance? You know, so the very first element is the ability to have that noticing, which sits under awareness. And this includes things like your ability to self-reflect, your ability to draw feedback and to really listen to that feedback from others. And it's about mitigating your blind spots as well. And this also includes your ability to accurately self-assess, you know, how am I going with this? And to be accurate with that. And it's also about accurately assessing the situation. So for those of us who are coaches, you know, we need to be able to do this like incredibly well, because this is actually what we're being hired for. We need to be able to notice the performance issue. We need to be able to fully understand it. We need to mitigate the blind spots and accurately see what's going on. But doing it for ourselves can be another story. Yeah, that's the first level. And the next level is understanding. So this is around accurately evaluating your performance. Now, how many of us will look at the way we've done something and we will be hypercritical of it? That is not an accurate assessment of that performance, or we will not evaluate things accurately. Because why? Because we have biases, because we have our subjective biases, perhaps against ourselves, perhaps against other people, certainly against ourselves. So having an accurate performance review and understanding also includes having robust thinking and being a critical thinker. And that also includes understanding technically what to do. So when I became a boxer at the age of 38, I was joining the game very, very late. And, you know, I had very robust thinking and I had really critical thinking, but I didn't understand boxing. I didn't understand what was the technique that I needed and the skill set that I needed. And I knew that I needed to dial up my technical capacity really quickly because I was so late to the game. And another thing around understanding is emotional reasoning. So this is an emotional intelligence term, and this is our ability to leverage data and our intuition. So an example for, say, an athlete would be whether or not we just know the technique that we're doing is right. We can just feel it, okay? Sometimes it can just be a feeling about something. This is not a fact. This is just a feeling. And if you don't know how to tap into those feelings, you're actually missing out on a lot of data that is available to you. So it's about balancing and understanding, okay, can I critically think about this? Do I technically understand everything that needs to be done? And do I know how this feels? And how do I combine all of that together? This shapes our understanding. And then the third level of performance is taking action. And this is around knowing what actions to take. So knowing what to do. Some people can see things, but then they don't even know what to do. They might not know how to handle the situation, or they might be paralyzed by indecision and they don't actually take action. Lower performers procrastinate and lower performers are very indecisive. Higher performers are the ones executing and taking action. It's around doing what needs to be done. And it's about effective execution. So it's not just good enough. When I was competing karate, it wasn't just enough for me to know what techniques. I needed to be able to do them. And that is really, really, really difficult. There's a huge chasm between knowing and doing. And that can be super tough bridge to cross. And that's when you know you're getting advanced, and then expert is when you can effectively do things. Okay, so how does this sort of blend in with whole brain thinking? All right, so let's link it all together now. Now, we're all super familiar with all of these competencies in each of these areas, the thinking preferences, what we all prefer to do, what our lower preferences is, etc. So let's link these all together. So let's take a look at, which of the thinking preferences do we need at each stage of those levels of performance. So I just shared the 3 levels, but then what are the thinking preferences we need to be able to deliver on awareness? What are the quadrants we need to leverage? What are the quadrants that we need to leverage around robust thinking, critical thinking? What are the quadrants that we need to leverage around intuition, around execution? All right. So this then ties into the actual keys. And these are the keys that are going to make or break, and anywhere within that scale, our performance and our well-being. So the first key is our awareness. And what I mean by this is, how good are you? How effective are you at noticing or not noticing, at understanding and recognizing the strengths and advantages of your thinking preferences? And also, what about noticing and understanding and recognizing the vulnerabilities of your thinking preferences? Okay, so I would like to ask you guys, and maybe if you could pop them in the chat, I'm going to use myself as the guinea pig to demonstrate. And as I'm going through and looking at how my thinking preferences show up in these places, I actually would like for you to consider yourselves. So I want you to be, as I'm talking through my connecting the dots, I'd love for you to be doing it with your preferences. So what do you think my thinking preferences are? Well, and as I'm doing that, as I said, I'd love for you to please share your deeper strengths of your thinking preferences. So on the scale here, with regards to where I sit, I am off the chart yellow, and I'm right to the edge of the chart red. So let's just take yellow as the example here. Okay. So what are the values? What are the deeper strengths of being yellow? Well, one of them is that with respect to performance first and then well-being. So one of them with regards to performance is that when I was, let's say as a coach. So as a coach, I can see deeper meaning. I can see meaning that lies in things that most people can't see. And this is a very yellow skill set. This is a very upper right mode thinking preference. So I can look really deeply and see things in there that most people can't see. When I was an athlete, I thought that everyone did this. I thought that all of the other athletes were assessing where everyone was at. And I came to realize that not even the coaches could see some things. And when I go into businesses, they pay me good money to help them to see the things that they can't see. Now that's an incredibly valuable yellow thinking preference. And I know that a lot of facilitators are very high in yellow, or wherever you sit. I really want you to consider, are you fully valuing your thinking preference? Or are you just sort of playing it down just a little bit because, you feel maybe a bit uncomfortable with that? But really, I think that that's your gift and that you need to offer to yourself and to the world. Okay, let's take my vulnerability. Let's take the vulnerability of my thinking preferences. Now, my vulnerability is actually, I have many because I'm a human being, but one of my vulnerabilities is around my low blue. So I have a 3 in blue. So basically, how did this show up in my life? And the vulnerability was, for years, I had 0 interest in making money. I didn't care about my financial well-being. I didn't care. Now, think about how that impacted my financial performance. Think about all the money that I left on the table, all those years that I wasn't, negotiating, that I wasn't looking after myself financially. And then I want to tie this back into being able to charge, knowing what you're worth and being able to charge for that unapologetically. And then let's have a look at the well-being aspect and saying, well, how did that affect me emotionally when I didn't know where my money was coming from. Have a think about the impact of those vulnerabilities on my well-being, the anxiety of in my 20s not really knowing where my money was coming from, and even worse, feeling like a loser, feeling like a failure, because here I was, this super high achiever. You know, I'd won 9, 10, 12 karate championships. I'd won 2 world titles, yet I couldn't get my finances in order. You know, and this massively impacted my emotional well-being and my sense of worthiness. So as I'm talking through this, I'd like for you to really take ownership around what are your strengths and what are your vulnerabilities around your thinking preferences. That's the awareness part. Okay. So number 2 is, Liz, I'm so pleased. I love an aha moment. Great. Okay. All right. Great. So you know what? And this session is, you know, it's super short. So I'm going to have to go fast, but we can change, we can evolve, and we can develop. I know you know this. We all know this, that you're not a tree. I'm not a tree. I can evolve and change. And it's around having the awareness of the impact of that. And this is the understanding phase. So this is around not having robust thinking practices in place to effectively analyze and understand either you or someone or the situation. And it's around, you know, whether or not you have the capacity to connect the dots of the impacts. So we might be able to see that we have a low preference for something or a high preference for something, but we aren't connecting the dots of how that shows up in our life. And what I'd like to encourage you all is to consider, what are the impacts if you only think from here, or if you only act from there, or if you're only thinking or acting from any of those quadrants. But it's not just that. I want to go even deeper. And I'd really like to say, you know, this is not robust thinking if we're only thinking primarily from one area. We can see that we're actually lacking and we have some blind spots in those other areas. And then we also need to consider, what is the depth and what's the quality of my thinking preferences? So how effective am I at thinking from the blue quadrant? What's the level of quality of that? And can I raise the bar? Can I might be high red, but does that mean just I'm letting my emotions spill all over the place? How can I effectively channel my red so that it serves me in terms of my performance and in terms of my well-being? So some real life impacts, some questions to consider are, how is your business being affected? And how is your team, or how is your work being impacted by your thinking preferences? And how might your thinking preferences be affecting, as I shared, your state of mind or perhaps your health? And how might it even be spilling over into your relationships? So really connecting those dots, I think, are incredibly powerful. All right. And the last one is 3. It's taking action. It's knowing how. It's knowing how to do it. So if you don't know how, you can mitigate that. Like I have no shame in saying, oh my gosh, I just hire someone to help me, not with my finances, but to be financially oriented and to be ambitious financially. To be smart and effective with the way that I make money, the way that I invest money. You know, I don't just want to hope I get good at it. I find an expert and then I work with them to develop my capacity to do. And I create accountability systems so that I make sure that I do those things that, you know, frankly, I'm avoiding. So here's some questions to consider. So how can knowing is around how to improve something. So knowing how, which is the action, and are you actually doing it or are you not? This is the ownership. This is the ownership aspect. And so ultimately we can leverage our thinking preferences. So how do I use whole brain thinking to be a better performer and increase well-being? I'm constantly trying to expand not just my thinking, but my living from all of the quadrants, from all of those areas. And it's really critical that I make a shift from I know that to I do that. How many of us know something intellectually, but then there's this huge chasm of us actually doing that thing? How many of us know that these are the best forms of communication for each of those quadrants? Yet, how many of us know that these are the best ways to listen to other people with respect to those quadrants? And yet, how many of us, and I say this with total respect because I'm in this basket as well, you know, are we doing it? Do we just understand it intellectually as a concept? And so just as my last thing that I'll say, just before I wrap and hand it back over, is that why do we just tend to do things from our own preferences, even though we might know better? And the answer, I believe, lies in our fixed mindsets. And this is, you know, something, these are typically where we consciously have to work on our fixed mindsets. You know, what are our core beliefs and how can we, you know, are they true? Are they right? How are they protecting us? What are our biases based on my thinking preferences? I might think that, you know, being yellow is the best and who cares about blue, or who cares about green, or green, you know, they're the rules. I don't like rules. Yeah, but there's a lot of inherent biases and that's impacting my performance, my relationships, you know, my well-being. So being able to actively eliminate your fixed mindsets and unpack those biases. And really, essentially, it's around always evolving and always practicing from each areas of the whole brain. And, you know, not just hoping that one day we get better or we improve in that area, but it's around conscious and intentional mindset design. And so one of the core elements of a high performance mindset, which I'm always talking about, is that it's mindset by design. It's performance by design. It's not about just turning up on default, but it's about consciously choosing how we're going to think about things, how we're going to actively work to see the world. So that is it from me, everyone. I would just really like to say thank you. And look, I know that this is actually a pretty short presentation, but I just wanted to say, if anyone is interested in any mindset capacity, you know, I've actually got, I just thought I'd offer you, I've got a free, totally free mindset and awareness check-in. If you would like to join, you know, my little mindset community, my powerful mindset community, send me an email and I'll just add you to the list. It's mini sort of inspiring coaching sessions and I do it weekly, and it just helps to stay focused on, you know, mindset and awareness. And the other thing is a request. And I would just like to say that if you gain value out of the session today, please, I invite you, if we're not already connected on LinkedIn, please reach out, please connect with me. And if you got value from this, could you please, you know, it would really mean a lot to me if you were to give a shout out and tag me in it, let people know that you enjoyed this session, let them know that their practitioners got together. And if you could please tag Linda in that as well, and Herman, that would be great. Just really helps to spread the word and shine the light on the awesome tool that is whole brain thinking. So that's it from me, and I'll hand it back over to Michael and to Linda. Thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it, and thank you everyone for your attention and your energy. I'm going to stop sharing my slide deck, and hopefully I'm able to do that. There we go. Stop share. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudine. That was fantastic. Lots of food for thought and some really interesting shares in the chat too. We will save the chat and send it in a follow-up email, as well as some of the Herman models that have been used in the presentation. So I'm going to throw to Michael Morgan now to just have a chat with us about what his takeaways from this session have been. And take it away, Michael.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Claudine. That was awesome. I don't know what everybody else did while she was talking, but I kind of drifted off to the golf course, because that for me is where I want, you know, peak performance, and seldom get it. I loved your, the 3 levels, obviously, or the 3 keys. You know, knowing and that awareness, but that's only part of it. You know, knowing why, what it is you're doing or not doing, and then obviously the, you know, the how. And I guess over the years, I've worked really hard at that when it comes to golf, because I think I am the owner of every golf book, every golf video, DVD. You know, I personally know most golf instructors. So yes, put a lot of time into it. When it comes though to, I guess, doing what you did, which was pulling together, performance and thinking. One of the things, I mean, I'm like Claudine, I'm a 3311. One of the things I learned early on in my, I guess, golfing career was enhanced performance for me was going to come by denying my preference. In other words, I was already so strong in the C and the D quadrants, that wasn't where improvement was going to come. It was going to come by valuing, understanding, and embracing the A and the B quadrants. And I've slowly been working on that. So it's lovely to see, you know, how you tied it together. Just one other thing, and yeah, I mean, it's still on golf, but to me it's interesting. I'm doing some work at the moment with a newly certified guy called Andrew Crockett. He lives up on the north coast of New South Wales. He's a scratch golfer, and he's also a journalist and author. And he's pushed me into it. So we're doing some research, I guess, around the impact of thinking preferences on elite golfers. And it's really interesting. The early indications are, right, that, well, there's 3 professional golfers who've made it to the highest level. And each one of them, when you look at their under pressure profile, are very balanced. We're looking at about, I think we've done now 10 or 12 aspiring golfers who are trying to get to the top level. And each one of them under pressure goes to a single preference. And we think that there's, you know, a lot in that, our proposition is that the real successful ones who already made it are able to access, you know, all the quadrants at those incredibly decisive moments, you know, of pressure when you're putting for a gold jacket or whatever it is. So yeah, really, really interesting. But I say, to me, deny your preference is where the improved performance lies. Thank you, Claudine. That was awesome.
Thank you, Michael. That was awesome also. And I'm really excited about that research that you and Andrew are doing. Thank you, Claudine. We've all got lots of food for thought. I want to talk about 2 things that are coming up that I want you to put in your diaries. We have a professional development session scheduled for 11 a.m. on Tuesday, the 2nd of December. And it will be called 2020 Lessons Learned from Virtual Facilitation. Some of you may have seen Rosie post something in Facebook about, you know, getting onto her with anything that you've learned and that she can use in this session. So Rosie will be running that session, I think, with Michael. And that should be a good one. And I'm sure we all have things we could add value to that session too. Now, the next practitioner forum like this will be held the 2nd Wednesday in December, on Wednesday the 9th. And we're going to have an HBDI practitioner who's the ex-CEO of Pandora Jewellery in Australia and in the UK, and started at Kinney Shoes, went through Colorado and the Fusion Group, which is a number of different fashion labels, a real expert in retail, how to use whole brain thinking in retail. So I thought coming up to Christmas, it was a good subject. So that's what we'll be featuring next. And his name is Brian Wenther, and he's really excited to be presenting. So hopefully you'll all be looking forward to that as well. Now, I will be sending a follow-up email to all of you from this session, and we'll include the chat notes, some imagery, and anything else that I find that might support what Claudine has shared with us today. And look forward to seeing you or speaking to you before or during that next session. So thank you very much, Claudine. Thank you, Michael, and thank you everybody who has joined us today.
Thanks, Linda. Thank you, everyone. It was great to see you all.